but it is important to know the distinction. Heightened pranic activity, Pranotthana, and Kundalini. Kundalini is much more demanding, much more unapologetic, much more forceful in every way. So in a way, Pranotthana, or the activation of pranic field, is a very, very desirable thing to what happens to a lot of people. Because it prepares, if one is destined to fully awaken from this cosmic, let's say, slumber, then that is the way forward. Because to people for whom Kundalini happened from scratch, will tell you these are not trifles, this is not walk in the park.
For my question, I have to give a little bit of background. Last year, I had, in August, I had a Kundalini awakening, a spontaneous one. I was like, I never was spiritual or anything like that. I was very rational, grounded, crazy a little bit. But this whole spiritual thing was for me like, I ridiculed it even. For me, it was like, well, why? We have science and everything. But something was always there. I always wanted to know the truth. So I went into this journey to look for truth, and it found me. While I was sitting in my office, and suddenly there was a video about reincarnation, and I don't usually look that kind of thing. I clicked on it. It was like 1 hour video, and it suddenly, this energy hit at me. My whole body was shaking, my hair stand up. I was sitting in the office. I was alone for that was good. Because afterwards, I was in this completely unity consciousness. I knew that we are all consciousness. It was for me a no-brainer at that point. I was like in this state, like half an hour. I was looking at my mug, at my plants in my office, and I was like, whoa, this is so perfect. And I knew that we take all kinds of forms every time. And after 30 minutes, it was like gone. I was like, okay, what the did just happen? I started with meditation. I had no idea about meditation, but something told me I have to meditate. So I started with it. It started with the first days I was seeing like these colors, then this white light. Then when I was in waking states, I was getting into the spontaneous samadhi states. And there was a moment where I was in meditation, and there suddenly a humanoid bird-like figure appeared. And was watching me, and I was like, okay, what is this? And it turned into an owl, and it flew directly into my mouth. Afterwards, I realized it was an initiation on the path of wisdom. And this type of thing keep happening, and this energy was moving all the time. And I had this ego death going on, and everything I wasn't my authentic me. I was my whole life I was very hedonistic and very into party, into sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I was always guided. This whole process was like, I'm guided. I'm not alone. I've been helped by the universe, or this consciousness, or whatever we want to call it. I was guided, and this guidance assured me that everything is going to be all right. And afterwards, I had this period of like 7 months where I was just at home and meditating every single day for like 3 hours or something like that per day, where I get into this ecstatic samadhi and also samadhi stages where the light, the white light, picks you up, and it was a crazy experience. But my question is on this path. I'm now in this embodiment phase. I already got a new job. I know already what I have to do. This was like amazing synchronistically things that happened. What can I do to improve the embodiment phase? Because now I don't have to meditate a lot. I have this inner peace inside. I still meditate because just for fun. But what else would you advise that I can do to go more into the embodiment?
Nothing really. Nothing you can do to embody this. But let's be attentive. What do I mean by that? And thank you for giving that extensive sharing of what on the outside sounds like an amazing act of grace, right? Because as you have pointed out, there was no seeking, there was no real propensity, right? It's just happened to you, right? So this could be spoken of as that grace, right? Suddenly you had this opening, this awakening. And according to how you have presented it, it all happened in a relatively short period of time. But it's my job to respond to you whilst at the same time, so we don't end up with half the picture, or let alone, let's say, this half the picture invites the possibility of distortion. We live in a time right now when a lot of this is happening. It's becoming definitely, we could even use that term now ambivalently, of course, here, endemically. So there is this, what before maybe was a rare occasion, or much more rare occasion. And even in comparison to the wild decades of the counter movement, counter-revolution of the 60s and the 70s, where the youth experimented a lot, experimented left, right, and center, experimented with consciousness-altering substances, experimented with techniques, experimented with methodologies, experimented with going with this or that teacher, right? There was this spirit of discovering. There are, by the way, sociological reasons for that. I've answered this question very clearly. These were the golden age of the end of the middle class. Middle class was strong enough for this to happen. We are much more fitted into a system now where it's the luxury most people can afford today. I just give you an example. Any of you, what are you like? What are you, mid-30s? What?
I'm 29.
Well, okay, so like maybe the beard, right? The hat gives you. So 29, young men, right? In my view, you're younger than my second daughter. One would have been 38, and the other one now 33, 34, actually. So anyone at that age, minus, like plus minus, let's say, take 5 years. How many of you can afford to just drop what you're doing and, like, let's say I'm not a teacher who came from Mallorca. I came from, let's say, where I was born, Uzbekistan, Central Asia. And I'm here with a visit, and the visit organized. And some of you resonate with this, and I will tell you, come with me. Yeah, come on, come with me to my ashram. How many of you can just, at the drop of a hat, and you have one on you now, do that? No, at a drop of a hat, meaning make the decision on the spot. Mm-hmm. That's English way of saying it. Okay. How many people can make that decision? No, most of you cannot. A week-long immersion, it's already a commitment of a colossal nature. When we extended our programs to 10 days, we were like, will people commit? 10 days, awfully a lot of time. This is what I'm talking about. You see? We are much more, excuse my French, screwed in that sense. Time has a different value now. Time is a true luxury. It's what separates us. And in fact, it's not just what you do, it's just something that basically none of us have a grip on. That's the fact, that's the reality. Plus, of course, that extension, very important one, the economic one. Because at that time, and one of the reasons why people were able to do that, because there were enough funds, social services, parents' money, and so forth. Today is much more difficult. How is that connects to what you're saying? You can make this connection yourselves. I will just draw this. This, what you described, only 60, 70 years ago would have been considered as a rare event. Were you on LSD? On mushrooms? Ayahuasca trip? No? Did Guru Shak zapped you there, came to your office?
No.
No.
But afterwards, in the meditations, I started to see like Shiva, Kali, and a guru I can identify.
Yeah. Don't worry about that, what happened after. I'm asking, did anyone facilitated that? Or consciousness-altering substances? No. Right? So in other words, an occurrence of that kind would have been considered more rare. In our day and age, they are more common, even in terms of the frequency. The situational setup can be different. Woman gives birth and not going through all these endorphins, like all this pain kind of body to cope with pain produces, and all that exertion and all that state of felicity throws in someone in a true awakening, you see? Someone can be awakened from an experience that is aesthetic in nature. Someone can be awakened from like being in the area where the earth shook. Someone can be awakened by just simply gazing into someone's eyes and that transmission of energy. Someone can be awakened by hearing voice. It's much more common now. Not to commonize your experience, don't get me wrong. I'm not here to dress you down, although it's almost like a deja vu if I had like, what was last time? There was that exact kind of like, it's 12, like what, 10 past 12 angle. There was the question exactly like that from someone who is also very charismatic, many beautiful rings and jewelry and everything, and happened to be a singer. Also
synchronicity.
Huh?
Synchronicity.
Yeah, was sat there on the first evening and asked like that. Am I making it up? Who was here in the room? Who remembers that? Yeah, remember that? It was like, so pinch me not. Is it happening again? And I dressed that man down. I had to, like all that kind of Kundalini. Like, it's almost like a kind of funny sport. I thought like, geez, this is the sport. So obviously, it's not the sport. Well, we have to check it anyway. So what am I driving here is this. With majority of these cases, and I'm not saying again, don't just get me wrong here, okay? We're getting to the point of your inquiry. But just to cover the territory here, so we don't leave pockets for guessing, fantasy, and imagination on the part of all of us. Awakening and awakening are not the same thing. There is a lot of activation of prana. In a recent talk, only a few months ago, I felt the time has come to separate wheat from the chaff. And I've introduced the Sanskrit term, which I simply use to speak of in plain English. Heightened pranic activity, Pranotthana. And Pranotthana is different from the awakening of Kundalini. And the difference is major here, okay? So the difference is, of course, all boils down to a very simple answer. Of course, it will require a tremendous degree of honesty and sincerity. In fact, it has nothing to do with sincerity, okay? Because if you try to be sincere here, it means it's already fake. Just pay attention. What's the difference? Outwardly, this person and this person. Pranotthana, Kundalini. Display of kriyas, the same. All the paraphernalia, the same. This, the same. What's the difference? A world of difference.
Maybe the transformational result afterwards?
Yes. So what's the difference between the display and what's the difference between? In Pranotthana, heightened pranic activity usually happens because there is, and of course, in both cases, it's all about Kundalini, if we understand that properly. In both cases, it's all about that, what is in charge. But Kundalini in Pranotthana itself is not released. There's a heightened pranic activity which could be accompanied and is accompanied by a lot of psychic experiences. A lot of that what is under the category of release of psychic information, which could not be accompanied by the phenomenology of some degree of omniscience, some degree of, like this. Some of these displays are there. But the chief difference between fully awakened Kundalini and Pranotthana as an activity, and this is why I'm taking this kind of an opportunity to speak to that so that we don't end up with just discussing the local picture. And I'm taking this as a chance, so it's spoken to the room, not just as a concrete response, is that Kundalini here gobbles away individuality. It comes here to do the job which Pranotthana cannot do. No heightened pranic activity. You can end up being psychic. You can end up being display of paranormal abilities. You can have tremendous healing will be accompanied. Because this also, one of the suggestions were already made in some of the work that is either preceding or happened in parallel with that of my own, have been made, that heightened awakening cases, which at that time was spoken all with that brushed with the same brush as Kundalini, but until the distinction is made, is precisely because there is a need at the collective level that a certain number of individuals need to be rid of psychic debris. In other words, a psychological health of society rests obviously on psychological health of its individuals, right? What other measure? There's no other measure. Because psychological impediment, the propensity for psyche to go astray in an individual is a chain reaction, domino effect, butterfly effect that could and shown us historically resulting in cataclysmic events when the whole entire race, nation can be taken by some real distortion, real psychic malady of sorts. So we could see that this propensity in what often spoken of as the crazy society we live in, and liberal democracy can be spoken if we give it like a lens of sane analysis is actually crazy. It's fundamentally bankrupt and crazy. Even the way how things are structured and arranged, how we are fixed in that, how everything is rapidly deteriorating. Every sphere of life is deteriorating to the core of what forms the society. This deterioration is unstoppable. It almost here to deteriorate the human spirit with the final frontier, which will be accompanied by complete and total collapse of family and complete and total collapse of a human being having capacity and belief in their own ability to rise above circumstances, which is the most important asset we have. Because soon as we will delegate that to the artificial intelligence, that willpower is given away. This is why I allow to those people who don't speak about artificial intelligence in terms of methodology, tools. It's nonsense. When Elon Musk speaks about it as tools and we just need to be smart, he only speaks to the fraction of sliver of his understanding, no matter how brilliant that man is. But people who speak about it in terms of artificial intelligence being a system, methodology is one thing, tool is one thing. If I need pliers or a screwdriver or whatever, lens or whatever, right? It's a tool. It's a passive tool in my hands. No more. Whatever that tool is, to amplify my voice, here's this, right? To take picture, that. Whatever is the tool. From the most primitive tool to drink water. It's a tool as well. When it becomes a system, it's a totally different thing. So artificial intelligence here as a system is to, as it were, create that final shift where human, effectively speaking, capitulates in the set of circumstances. And this is what, in my additional understanding of the rise in the demographic, let's say, scale of awakenings is what facilitates this process, because this sanity needs to be reinstalled and some people need to be healed so that there is this something rest in the society. So let's say if like the equivalent, Dr. Wayne Dyer tried to do this together with the scientist of his time, Stephen Hawking, during the experiments, which has been published. I don't know whether this was conclusive or not, where these assessments were made, how state of consciousness of an individual impacts other individuals in a society.
That's the 100 Monkeys conclusion, right?
It is based on that. But they did it, they went as far as, like, Wayne Dyer went as far as giving it, it's in one of his books. I spoke about it some days ago, some years ago, I meant, where in the one in whom consciousness is completely and utterly identified with neurophysiological activity only with the body, effectively whose consciousness is only subject to rotating frequencies of waking, dreaming, deep sleep, that is consciousness which is in a state of homeostasis, sleeping, sleepwalker. The energy field that emits by that individual is very minimal, very minimal. The impact of that individual on the collective is almost inconsistent to speak about unless there is a proportion of people. You see? For example, a whole stadium filled with 10, 30,000 of these sleepwalkers will begin generate some effect, right? We know that. The effect that is generated by a group of people overwhelmed, excited about something, right? You would feel that. You'll be sucked into that bubble. Further, it goes into the one whose frequency velocity of consciousness begins to get faster and faster, then it gets proportionately higher degree of impact. And there are these geometrical progression. It's not, 100, 200 or so. It's like literally from impacting 100 people at one level of consciousness to impacting 10,000 people at the higher state. At the still higher state, it goes into 100,000. So this could be explained that the necessity within nature itself, these safeguarding mechanisms are engaged. And that also is facilitates self-healing processes, because that, where that happens, cannot take place in a clogged system. It's obvious. The operating system needs to be purified. So the operating system needs to be, simply pure enough to be a conduit of that energy. That energy goes there. So if the system is pure enough, so it will very easily vibrate in that system without destroying that system. Let's put it this way, without impeding functioning of that system.
Yeah, that's basically exactly my conclusion also, because I also have to add up to my experience. I had a long journey of self-healing. And I also thought a lot about this, why wasn't this process was hard, but I know from other people, from other stories, from a research that I make, this process can be very, very destroying for the system also. And for me, it was like, I don't want to say easy, but
Don't want to, because you've shared enough for me to get that. So you feel free to add when I give this further, let's say, reflection. So this necessity to introduce this so that there is this greater clarity and people don't begin to use Kundalini awakening too casually, including even this Kundalini activation system that appeared some years ago, and it became quite popular for a time being. I don't know if it is still, but KAP it is known for.
Yeah.
So in the videos and everything, but this is, back in the days, I said, this is not real Kundalini activation. It's activation of prana. In the earlier days of when first generation, second generation, and even third generation of pranic healers, right? The modern system, Reiki, was introduced. When Reiki system was brought to America, right? From Japan. Who knows this story? Anyone knows the history of Reiki? If you know, then at the level of that advanced third degree of healing, everyone had the display of heightened pranic activity. Even at a distance. I've done that myself. My patient, someone on whom that pranic healing is being conducted, is in another country. We have an appointment. I'm going into meditation session, healing session. This person is there receiving. They begin to shake. Their limbs shake. You see, so it doesn't even work locally. It works remotely. And within the Reiki system, you can find out, read in books, what is it based on. So, but it is important to know the distinction. Heightened pranic activity, Pranotthana, and Kundalini. Kundalini is much more demanding, much more unapologetic, much more forceful in every way. So in a way, Pranotthana, or the activation of pranic field, is a very, very desirable thing to what happens to a lot of people. Because it prepares, if one is destined to fully awaken from this cosmic, let's say, slumber, then that is the way forward. Because to people for whom Kundalini happened from scratch, will tell you these are not trifles, this is not walk in the park. And we're talking about some canonical figures, people who gave themselves to that, truly gave themselves to that. Yes, sometimes I say this, sometimes I say that, sometimes I'm known for being outspoken. But you know, people like Adyashanti, he worth his salt. The guy gave his life to that fully. And when he talks about Kundalini in close circles, when he did talk, and it's very well known, it's related to me because I worked with his and met his students who were teachers already in their own right. He said it's like, man, this was hell-like, or going through hell. Okay? Good luck. That's the words of that teacher. And I have tremendous respect for Adya, for what he's done, because he broke the ice. He was the one who showed up. This is how awakening looks. At the time when people were still lost in Gagaland, I'm talking about the popular level, not in, there were always much more filled in pockets where awakening was understood, you know, when the teachers, when traditions, it's, people knew. Not that Adya was the first to awaken, no, the generations upon generations of people, even in homemade in America. So the distinction between Pranotthana and Kundalini proper is this. So to respond to your question, why I said nothing you can do about this, all you can do is to, in a way, bask in this. What do I mean by that? You bask in this, what you now describe and refer to as a natural process, natural. You can meditate for fun, for joy, you cannot meditate, you feel this peace, you feel this like, right? You feel this, you're going through integration, right? This embodiment, and you ask me, what can I do for great embodiment? The question itself comes from a place where this tells me this question would not come, because you cannot have great embodiment. Because this in itself, if you reflect on this, in a way, doesn't exist. You see? At some point, puncture was made in that whole bubble of embodiment. We use that, I've used that term, but truly speaking, there cannot be that. You cannot embody yourself greater than you already are. Why? Learn about prana, what in the body, and you will know why. Life force in the body, that's all there is. Life force in the body. If someone is walking, dazing, half asleep, half awake, you think they're less embodied? They're as embodied as the one who is like cutting that tuna fish with that Japanese knife, which will cut your fingers all in neatly if you just miss one move, because this is such a sharp tool. Anything. What, you think the guy who is like scoring like in the NBA, like that fantastic, you know, thrust the ball into the, you know, into the basket, is more embodied and more integrated than the one who is just walking around, it's like, you know, knocking things off? Both embodied in the way they are embodied. So this is why I said nothing you can do. None of us can, none of you, us, can embody yourself more than you're already embodying yourself. At some point, that puncture needs to be made. So it's like, can I embody myself more? Depends what kind of language we use here. We can be frivolous with language and we can like, yeah, slide it. Well, you know what, man, do this, do that, right? Start tea ceremony, start like, you know, get up in the morning, just don't do anything. Listen to the sound in your head, like, you know, be more present. It's the same thing. No. So enjoy this, right? Enjoy this. There was something slipped through you, what you were saying. Do I need a teacher? Do I need this? This all, whatever that guidance is there, right, will guide you. That's it. Forgive me, when all this exhausts itself, right, wherever you will find yourself, you will know what to do. See? So if it continues and unfolds and you tomorrow, you go to sleep tonight, and this may be exactly when it's like all happened. All in that night, for you, your gift, that's what it is, could be. Why shall I say it's not? It's limiting consciousness. You will achieve the journey of the saints, of the rishis, of the sages, of the siddhas. Great siddhas who have sweated at it for years could be just given to you like this in one night with all this, what you've described so far. All possible. Right? How do I know you're not a Shiva in disguise came to poke me? Huh? Guys, you know? See? Like pulling my leg here, like trying to see, are you a teacher? Right? I've known all these stories, man. I've done my work. I covered it. You know? Any beggar I pass on the street could be Shiva in disguise. You know? Not that I carry a pocket full of coins to please him. No. No, but yeah, cool, man. Yeah, okay. Don't touch me. Good. Okay. So make what you will out of that. You see? So this really what this boils to. Mm-hmm. Because if what you're saying is as you're saying, then that same guidance that that brought you in here through what you experienced will continue to guide you. You see? Sometimes we are given this. Some people do have this. I've met many people who had this, extraordinary ways. Sometimes it was given to them for whatever reason. Sometimes no, for no reason. Extraordinary healing took place, you see? But where did they find themselves along the longer span of the trajectory of life is another story. Sometimes it's almost like in that fairy tale when you go back and like, gosh, did it all happen? Did it happen or not happen? Why am I finding myself back into the same predicament, you see? Also happens. So that's why nothing you can do about it. And yet, if there is this guidance, that what will guide you. And of course, you said something, teacher is within, I'm my own master, guru is within, all these are, the difference between Pranotthana and Kundalini is Kundalini merciless. Pranotthana, the individual is intact, all intact throughout, with all this, and in fact, it's all pocketed. My life became richer. I'm rich, I'm better, I'm healed, I'm recovered, I'm this and that. And on top of that, I'm now a spiritual Shaktipat master, in some cases, you see? Whereas in the case of true Kundalini activity, it's like...
You lost it all.
You don't know who you are. You don't know what the heck are you doing here, you know? And it takes some time to really comfortably surrender into that, so that that would fly into our mouth as an owl, or whoever sits on our top of our head, like whichever goddess, whatever presiding deity, until that structure decides, well, it's worth it. Is he worth it? No? Look, yeah? No. All right. Shall we? Do whatever you want, man. Okay, let's give him a break. And it's like, boing. So it happens like that too, you see? So, but one thing I do feel like reflecting is this, it's almost very, very part of that whole setup. You see, that I'm my own master. It's a very, very sharp edge to walk. Because yes, ultimately, that's the reality of situation. There's no other master. There's always just that. Each and every one of us embodies within the very, very locus of our essence of who we are is that master. But every tradition also says that access to that master is covered, completely, sealed. And paradoxically, it is revealed at the time when you don't need one, and yet you get one. So this is when the paradox sets straight. You see? This is where it doesn't make any sense. And in any case, it doesn't make any sense because we get, this is my teacher, that's my teacher. I got a teacher. No, you don't. It's a continuation of the same show. We all play roles. It's just like, yeah, it's a cool to, if the teacher is cool and telling that teacher, be my teacher, it's actually partaking in that coolness, It's that. It's like a fan base, It's like whatever fan you follow, like, I don't know how many of you remember, but I do remember. It's like, you go to someone, you meet the guy, yeah, like sooner or later, what you listening, right? What's your taste in music? And it's like, boom, the taste, like, yeah, cool. And it's like, makes us cool, makes us two even cooler, because we have the same taste. We're listening all King Crimson or something, So, but it's all transactional. It's nothing really happening. The teacher says this, and it's like flying off the head, and but when it actually aligned, because in order to know who one's teacher is, there has to be this internal alignment within, to the degree of recognizing one's own wisdom in that what appears as another. And so, in fact, it's the clearest reflection in the whole of mirrors. The clearest. It's nothing to do with people who come to teachers because of psychological impediment, because they are hard done. They are not to be, of course, dismissed, not to be pitied. It's a serious thing, because it's going to create a lot of mess. It's going to create a lot of mess, where one would be, effectively speaking, not benefiting at all from that. And this is the start of stuff of legend, how many people think that there will be a teacher who will save them from whatever, from addiction, from traumas, from whatever, just as long as they, delegate their life. Because there has to be also a culturally supported consensus there. It cannot be just borrowed, taken, It has to be authentic for it to work. So that's the only thing, that whatever revelations, insights that come to you, you see, remember, so you don't end up with that trick of the mind that, could just do that monkey business. Owl is good. Monkey sitting on the shoulder here and yapping something in the ear, not sure how spiritually trustworthy that is. Actually, that is how mind is. It's like this monkey that is just would not have it any other way. And it always knows, and it always, no, wrong, listen, let's do something else. Let's have banana. Like that.